Okay, next up is the blast and start working on our source. So I'll create a new geometry container. I'll call it the blast, changing the color to green. Let's dive inside and we'll start with the sphere. Actually a primitive or not, polygon. And with a pretty high frequency, 16. Let's check it out. Let's make sure we can actually see what's going on outside so we can have a look at the robot and also the artifact for us to position things. So I'm going to go to the side view, spacebar 3. So the sphere can be smaller. That's something we already know. Let's go with 0.3. And besides being smaller, we're going to want to kind of flatten it out a bit, 0.25. The idea behind the blast on this one was like if there was an intruder on the cave, the artifact starts reacting to it, gathering enough energy to kind of blast him with an energy burst. The blast will be mostly focused on the character, targeting the character, so it's not a radial blast. It does have some radial blasts as well, but most of the blast is going to be focused on the character. Hence, we're creating kind of a more directional emitter. Okay, so let's play with the transform. We can position it right away. Somewhere around here would be fine. Probably just moving it up. I think it's fine. Maybe more towards the center. Let's go to the top view. Make sure it's centered. I think it is. All good. Spacebar 1. And we're going to be working above the transform for now, but we know that we already have the proper alignment and position. So for now, we don't really need to see what's happening outside. Okay, first thing I want to do is I'm not interested in emitting to the back. Just want to emit towards the front. So I'm going to apply a clip on the X direction and maybe just offset it slightly, 0.02. I think this is enough. Next, we'll apply some normals to this. Let's create a normal and we'll convert these normals, make sure that the normals are applied to the points. Finally, we'll start playing with the density. So let's create an attribute noise. We'll call this density. It's not a vector, it's a float. And let's have a look at it. Make it visible. So I'm gonna right click here, go to the pencil and change how we visualize this. It already has a minimum and a maximum of 1, which is great. But for the colors, I'm gonna use white to red. So white is gonna be 0 and red is gonna be 1. Once we have that, I'll just go down and make sure that the element size needs to be smaller. So we do have something more in scale of what we actually have on our emitters geometry. And the next thing I'm going to do is make sure that I'll click this little icon here. And that way we can actually minimize this, expand this one. So I want this to be kind of smaller on the x-axis, so we have more of a radial feel about it, kind of a, yeah, something like this. Seems good. And then I'm gonna go to the animation, turn on animation, and the pulse duration, we'll have to test it out. Make sure to turn on real time. Not bad. We could probably go with something slightly faster. So let's go with 0.5. Okay. And let's play with the remap. I want to have more contrast, especially if you're going to be scattering particles on it. Usually particles will be applied on everything that's pretty much not 0. Okay, this seems like a good idea. Maybe try just a smaller size, 0.08. Okay, and I think this is a good option. Something like this. Maybe we can actually increase this, the frequency, to 20. So we have a bit more points. Okay, now let's go to scatter. There are many ways you could do this, but I'm gonna play with the scatter and use the density attribute, not force a total count and just play with the density scale. I don't actually need to relax these points, just want them to kind of be scattered. Okay, so we have these points being scattered based on density. We're probably going to be increasing this number quite a bit, at least another 0. So we have really a lot of particles. But for now, let's just play with something less intense. The next step is, even though we do want to emit from these points, we want to kind of have that sense of growth from the center out. What I mean is, if we start emitting right away from this source, it's going to be kind of right away more of a cylindric shape. And it would be nice for us to have kind of something that starts small but then expands to the edges. So many ways of doing that as well, but I'm going to create a new sphere. Let's create a sphere, create. I'm going to connect it here so it puts it right exactly well where I'm going to be using it as well. And then I'm just going to be applying a transform. And on this transform, I will be reducing the scale. So let's go with something at 0.6 on this direction. We don't need to have a lot more geometry, but yeah, let's do something like this as well. And after this, I'm gonna also apply a kind of a scale, 0.7, 0.75. And then this is where we're gonna be animating the growth. The target or the main goal is gonna be for us to create a group. I call this to keep points, and it's going to be based on the bounding regions of the second input. So the goal is going to be for us to be able to animate this over a few frames. So let's say, let's create a keyframe at this frame, 1001. Alt click. Next, I'm going to go up to frame somewhere around here, 1020. Sounds good. And I'll alt click another keyframe, and I'll just hit enter to kind of move this all the way, making sure that it's kind of grabbing as many points as we can. Then we'll keep this position for a good amount of frames. Let's go up to frame 1060, alt click another keyframe, and then moving forward to frame, let's say 1076, and alt click and move out again, making sure we're not selecting anything else. Okay, now let's go here. We should see the selection points. I think this is good. Next, we're going to be blasting everything that's not inside this group. So let's apply a blast and delete none selected. So we should have none in the beginning, then we do have something going on, and then none at the end.